Are you having a hard time holding on to your deadlift because of your grip? Well, today's video, I'm gonna walk you through everything you need to do to strengthen your grip so you can hold on to those heavy deadlifts. Let's get to it. Hey there, Brandon Splay here from Thirst Gym, and today I'm gonna walk you through step-by-step on how to improve your grip strength. Me personally, I struggled with this for years during my competitive years of powerlifting, and I would routinely drop deadlifts into the 500-pound range because of my grip. So what I did was I reached out to two legendary powerlifters that had strong grip and strong deadlifts and asked them, what can I do to ensure that I don't drop deadlifts anymore? Those two people were Steve Goggins and JL Holdsworth. And what they recommended to me was something that I'm gonna share with you today that helped me hold on to deadlifts. So the heaviest deadlift I ended up pulling in a meet was 510, but I went on to pull 530 in a training day, getting ready for a meet and not actually dropping the load. So stick with me today, step by step. I'm gonna help you improve your grip strength so you don't drop any more deadlifts like I did. Let's go. All right, so the first thing we gotta talk about here is getting a baseline and assessment of kind of where your grip strength is, and then the three ways that you can technically hold on to your deadlift. So obviously, if you're dropping deadlifts, we know that there's an issue there with your grip strength in some capacity, but another thing you could do is a dead hang, and you can do this for time. And you can pick some different times that you want to do. You can do anywhere from 30 and a 60 and a 90 seconds, or you can just do a max pull with just your body weight and you'll be able to know. The way you'll determine this is if you're doing a 30, 60, or 90, you're either gonna try to do these with your body weight and try to make it to that, or if you're going to try to do that time, then you'll add weight to yourself. And the reason I like this is because you're gonna hang double overhand, okay? So it is gonna tax your grip, and usually those bars are about the same diameter of a deadlift bar or a bar that you're gonna deadlift with, which is gonna give you a good understanding of where your grip endurance is, especially the higher that you get here, okay? Now, this is one that anybody can do. The other thing that you can do as well, which I'm gonna put over here, are you can do pin pulls, okay? And you're gonna do 1 rep maxes of those at various heights, and that can give you an idea of where your grip strength is or where you're beginning to lose it. Now, me personally, when I did this, I did the pin pulls, and I had 3 separate pin positions. I had one that was around mid-shin, that was, you know, like I said, mid-shin, well below my knee, but the weights were still technically off the ground. I did one right below my knee, and I did one right above my knee. So I could, one, test different things so I could see that, hey, if I'm doing great on the top end of holding it, but for whatever reason I get that bottom one, I just can't hold on to those weights as much, then I know maybe there's actually an endurance issue for me being able to hold it on, right? Because I'm able to hold on to the heavier ones. So this is also another way to give you different options here. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you always use the same rack, so that you can track these heights or use a tape measure, but these will give you 1 RMs, and again, always do these double overhand, that way it's completely unbiased as possible. It's gonna give you your true grip strength. Now, the other thing that we're gonna talk about are the 3 grips, okay? So the double over is kind of what we're testing here. You're never gonna be able to lift the most you can with a double overhand grip. It's never going to happen. However, your double overhand grip can be beneficial because if you are training something that you can hold on to with a double overhand grip, let's hypothetically say like a chest supported row machine, then you want to do that, okay? That's gonna give you the same training effect, at least from a grip perspective. The other one is going to be using a mixed grip, which is you're gonna have 1 hand supinated and 1 hand pronated. This is how I deadlifted personally. You can alternate back and forth. This is going to be stronger because of the way that you're able to hold the barbell. However, the bad thing here is you are gonna have some asymmetry, right? If 1 hand is open and 1 hand is closed, that's going to cause some twists and turns out the body, can lead to some issues long term. The overall best is then going to be doing hook grip, okay? Hook grip is basically gonna be a double overhand position, but you're gonna take your finger and wrap it around the bar, and then your fingers come around your own finger to hold it. Weightlifters are fantastic at this. This is how they lift how much weight they do, and it is very safe and effective. You do have to just build up a pain tolerance in the middle of your thumb. Now, the reason I did not use hook grip, I tried training towards it towards the end of my career using a deadlift bar, because that's how I competed, but still I could not do it to a high degree, is my hands are very small and very fat, if you can't tell. And so this is just a regular marker, who knows what the diameter is, but that's what my hook should look like. As soon as you put a power bar or a deadlift bar in there, my hook grip, I was basically barely holding on to a fingernail. And so so I did not trust that reliably to be able to pull over 500. I think I pulled around 455 or so at some point in training with a hook grip, and I felt like I was about to lose it. And that was, 60, 70 pounds underneath like a deadlift. Did not make sense. So if you happen to be a small hand individual, hook grip may not be an option for you, and if that's the case, then you need to go with a mixed grip. So usually if you're trying to lift the most weight, you want to go with these two, but I want to make sure you understand that from a training perspective, you want to do as much double overhand work as you possibly can with your accessory work. Mixed grip is what you're going to use for most people, and if you can stand the comfort of the hook grip and you're willing to give it a try and some practice, hook grip is going to be the way to go to definitely make sure you can deadlift the most amount of weight. All right, now that we've got the basics covered, let's talk about what I think are the top 7 exercises to improve your grip. Number 1 is going to be the farmer's carry, okay? The reason I like the farmer's carry is because 1, it's going to develop the upper back as well in terms of being able to carry stuff. We can also load this up very heavy, letting us squeeze the crap out of those farmer handles. Now, you can use dumbbells, you can use kettlebells, you can actually use, an actual farmer implement handles, does not matter. These are fantastic for developing your grip, specifically to help your deadlift, especially if you can have some that are approximately the same diameter of the barbell, because then it's going to be more specific. What you want to make sure here that you have is that you have a short and a long duration or distance that you can use to not only test and track this, but that way the short one is actually over the heavier loads and the distance one is going to tax and work on your endurance of being able to hold on to that for the long term. These are fantastic exercises. I don't know anybody that would dispute the awesomeness of farmer's carries for improving your grip strength and making just overall strong hands in general, but in particular helping your deadlift and building your upper back and your midsection, your stability. Just lots of great stuff to carry over your deadlift in general, but that's why it gets number 1 for me. Number 2 is going to be plate pinches, okay? And so with plate pinches, you're going to take 2 probably metal plates ideally together. You're going to squeeze them and you're going to hold them like this. Now, usually you're going to hold them by your side. Something I picked up from J.L. Holdsworth was if you deadlift with a hook grip or whatever grip you do, you want to do those in the exact same way that you're going to hold on to the deadlift bar. So if you're pulling hook grip, you either take the 2 plates, one in each hand, or if you're going to do one hand at a time, you're actually doing double overhand around where your hands would be when you go to deadlift, because supinating or pronating or holding it by your side is going to change the mechanics of how you're actually holding the weight and the muscles you're going to have. We want it to be as specific as possible. Now, you can do it by your side and test it by your side, that's fine. But if you are a sumo puller pulling like this, get in the habit of being in that position and building your pinching grip. And so that's going to train your grip here to be incredibly strong, and that's going to train your fingers more so than your ability to be able to crush and hold onto it like with the farmer's carry. So different type of grip, but building the resiliency of those fingers is important for having strong grip, especially if you're starting to lose it. You want to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, the third thing is going to be a suitcase pin pull. Now, this is something that Ed Coan was very big on back in the day. And Ed Coan, if you've ever met Ed Coan, one, has the longest arms in the world for his size. Like, it is unbelievable. I think he can scratch his kneecap without even having to move his arms or bending over. But he was a big proponent of also doing these suitcase pin pulls. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take the barbell, place them in the rack, and then you're going to stand next to it. And it's not going to be a very big pull. And you're going to grab the barbell in the middle of the barbell and then hold it here and then obviously add weight on there. He liked that because, one, the diameter, again, was the exact same that it was going to be when he deadlifted, but also, 2, you're focusing on ulnar and radial deviation as well. So not only is that barbell trying to roll out of your hands, it's also going to move your wrist back and forth this way. So the stabilization of the wrist is going to get trained as well, and that's incredibly important because when you're going to pull heavy weight, like, that weight's going to be moving around a little bit. So it's going to make the wrist more stable in terms of his thought process, and I would agree with that. And then it also lets you overload it as well. So again, you can do those. Now, you can also do these for, he didn't just do pins, pulls as well. He also did them for holds. So, you have a couple different ways that you could do that. So I would mix those in, but these are definitely a go-to and I think super underrated and many people don't do if they have grip issues. Number 4 is going to be hex dumbbell holds. Now, this is something I got from Dave Tate and as well as J.L. Holdsworth, was if you happen to train a gym that's got the dumbbells with the hex ends and they're metal, right? You know that you can put your fingers around them and hold them upside down. Now, these work awesome for improving the strength of your pinky and your thumb. Specifically, your other fingers will get work too, but being able to hold that dumbbell is going to be specifically tied to your pinky and your thumb, almost more so than anything else. And that strength of being able to hold that there is going to be incredibly important for your deadlifts, because the first things to go with your grip are always your pinky and or your thumb. And so if those are stronger, the chances of it actually having to roll into your hands decrease. Now, these I always like to do for timed holds of anywhere from 15 to 30 seconds on each hand. And I can tell you that they are very humbling. The bad thing is, you're someone like me who's got very small hands, you're kind of limited with what you can actually get your hand around a dumbbell size-wise. Luckily for me, I never went past like I think a 30 or 35 dumbbell for small second time holds. So I didn't have to worry about it that much, but if you are a bigger individual, something to consider that could be a limitation here with this one exercise, but I do think it's a great way to do timed holds if you happen to be in that case. Number 5 is gonna be double overhand pin pulls, going back to kind of what we used to test. This is something I got strictly from JL Holdsworth, and doing, again, various pin heights, but also doing various rep ranges and or hold durations. So the two big things I would say, I talked about having the main 3 positions that I would use, but also more importantly, here what I did as well was I would do just a regular pull, and then I would do a 3 count, and then I would also do a 5 count hold. So not only am I doing just like a regular 1RM, it could also be the fact that this week I'm doing a 1 rep max, but I have to hold it at the top for 3 seconds, making sure I can still crush that weight. The great thing about that is if you got 3 positions here, you now have these 3 plus being able to implement other variations. Your variations here expand quite a bit. So you've got lots of different variations here so that you're not always doing the same thing, and you can focus on more what you need, right? Next is gonna be grip implements. Now, I bought this awesome grip implement pack from Elite FTS specifically because I was having issues with my grip. And JL Holdsworth recommended I buy this pack because the implements are different. There's a bunch of different things in terms of thickness and thinness and round, and there basically was 9 different grips that you could use. And so the great thing is I now walked into 9 different ways to build my grip, and I can use the ones that I needed the most to help attack my deadlift, but also something that JL Holder recommended was that you work on different aspects of your grip year round. So while you may want to do farmer's carries all the time, you need to make sure you're training these other things as well. 1, so that your hands and elbows stay healthy, but 2, you're giving your body different stimulus to adapt to different grip, because you may have a hard time determining what's actually going to move the needle for your grip for a while. So you may need to play with some things. That grip implement 1 let me do that, but I could also tell the difference between my hands very easily because I was always doing them unilaterally. And to me, they're also fun and challenging. And so if you're a grip enthusiast, you happen to know how awesome that stuff is. I am not, but to give you an idea, that's something I use. I would recommend looking into those. If Elite FTS still has that, I'm not sure. If they do, I'll link in the description box below so that you can buy that. I get no affiliate fees, kickbacks, or anything like that. It's just a completely honest review. It's just sitting right over there in my gym. Okay, so use that. And these, again, basically I always did 1 rep maxes, trying to find what that was, and always trying to break my 1 rep maxes. I would still do, 1 to 2 back down sets of these to where I would work on decreasing the weight 10 to 15%, getting quality holds and extensions, and obviously still trying to train that specific pattern. But the thing that was the most important was trying to improve that 1 rep max, because if that's getting better, then I'm gonna be able to hold on to my deadlifts. The last thing I recommend here are captain crushers, basically the hand squeezers. Okay, now I'm going to tell you how to use these differently than you would of just doing them as normal. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that. If you happen to be driving your car and you want an easy way to improve your grip, put captain crushers that you can get about 5 to 8 repetitions in. That's absolutely it, like max. After you do that, your performance decreases. Keep that in your car, and every time you hit a stoplight, hit a couple reps. Hit a couple reps. Over the course of time, you will find that your hands will get tremendously stronger. It's just a good cheat hack that you can do to improve your grip strength, and it will work. However, to make this specific for deadlifting, what I got from JL Holdsworth was you take an actual captain crushers that's right around your 1 rep max, one that you can barely close. And then what you do is you take your other hand and you assist yourself into closing that, and then you take your hand and you put it down in your deadlift position and you hold it as long as you possibly can. And you let that captain crushers pry your hands physically open, and you resist with all the might that you have to not let it happen. It's eventually going to happen. But the reason he liked that is because you're going to have to crush that barbell in your hands as you're actually deadlifting. And if you're doing this for a long period of time and it's lengthening that over time, you are building good quality eccentric training stress to your forearms and in your fingers and your hands. And as we know, from an eccentric perspective, that's where we can be the strongest in terms of the amount of load that we can handle. And so if we can do that, build up that resiliency and that strength through eccentrics, that can make us stronger at all these other things, okay? You gotta think about it, there's not really a good way to eccentrically train your hands or your grip, but these Captain Crush variations are a great way to do it. I would recommend also getting 2 to 3 different strength levels. You want to have one that's relatively easy, almost like a warm-up, because you can do it as a warm-up before you actually train your grip specifically, or you can just keep it to actually get blood flow and get your hands feeling good, not a bad thing. You want a medium grip or something that's relatively challenging for you to close, probably about a half a number away or 1 number away, that you can actually do some repetitions with as well, so you can just practice on closing it. And then you obviously want to have the one that is challenging for you, that is hard for you to close. I know it really kind of sucks, but you may have to find somebody you can kind of play around with these with. But overall, this is one of the best things that I've ever done to help my grip, even though it's at number 7. It is something that is very taxing and hard, and I did feel like a lot of these other things gave me a better return on investment for my time. But for a lot of people, if you're looking for a cheap, easy, quick way to go after your grip, this is probably the cheapest and easiest way to go after it. No matter what you're doing or where you kind of train with, you can get into this about 50 or 60 bucks in terms of the grippers, and you will see your grip improve. All right, now I'm gonna give you some tips that I have that I got from JL Holdsworth and Steve Goggins, and from personal experience of what really worked well for me. So these are kind of my things. From a training perspective, we wanna have 2 times a week where we're training our grip heavy. And by heavy, I'm talking about 1 rep maxes. And it might sound ridiculous, but from what JL Holdsworth told me, if anybody's met JL, you know how strong his hands are. He has competed in grip and has done incredibly well. You want to treat your grip like its own training day, essentially. And so we need 2 heavy days to keep that stimulus relatively heavy. And if strength is what's holding you back from holding on a deadlift, you have to train it heavy. High repetitions is not going to get it done in terms of moving the needle forward for improving your maximal strength of your grip. So you want to train it heavy, and by heavy, 1, 2, 3 rep maxes at the absolute highest. I really like doing the 1 rep maxes. It's also a good test of your readiness, but also it's very clear whether you're getting better. You either hold it on to the implement or you didn't, okay? Then we also want to make sure that we're doing this 1 time a week light, and that's where the Captain Crush can come in, or you can do wrist curls and wrist extensions for blood flow. By light, what I'm talking about here, the goal is not necessarily to truly train your grip to get progress out of it. The goal is to get blood flow and to just continue to get work there so that it's getting some stimulus. But we understand that this session is not going to make or break our progress. It's just going to help our hands and wrists feel better, especially if we're talking about wrist extension or putting hands in a rubber band or sand buckets for overall hand and wrist and forearm health. That's incredibly important as well. Now, the other thing on top of this as well is that you train your grip first if it's on the training day that you lift. So for me, what I would do is I would actually put this on my upper body days, and I would get into the garage 20 to 30 minutes before my training partners would get there, and I wouldn't do anything crazy warm-up wise. I would just grab some Captain Crushers, squeeze them really light, get them going. I would do some forearm wrist curls, wrist curl extensions, just to make sure that my hands and everything felt good, and I would go straight into the implement that I was testing for that day. I'd work up that 1, 2, 3 rep max, maybe 1 to 2 back down sets of working on stuff, trying to get some longer holds, that kind of jazz. But that was basically it, and then I was done. And when they come in, then I'm ready to bench press, okay? And I know that my grip is not going to ever affect my bench press, at least in terms of its performance, right? Like I'm gonna be able to still bench the amount of weight. I may not be able to squeeze the bar as hard in terms of like being able to get a position, but that's not as important. The key here I want you to think about is you don't want to tax your grip before you deadlift, and you don't want your deadlift to tax your grip to be able to build your grip strength. So coming back to this, something that you want to consider is using straps for your deadlifts and your pulls when you actually deadlift, okay? If your grip strength is truly holding back your deadlift strength, straps could be a viable way for your deadlift to continue to make progress while you're training your grip, because if your grip is constantly, 1, being trained hard, but then 2, holding back your deadlift progress, let's take that out of the equation and let our deadlift continue to get stronger, because we can see progress with our deadlift and our grip separately, and that's what I did. Usually I would deadlift with straps on my heavy days. My speed days, not so much, but my heavy days, I would use straps. And the reason I did was to save my hands for these 2 heavy days, and then my 1 day of light work didn't really matter that much, but it was, again, still something that was taxing my grip that would eventually come back to harm me of how I can actually deadlift my heaviest on my max effort days. So What a lot of people probably won't tell you, but I'm telling you, this did help my hands feel recovered and actually get stronger, because if we put these on the opposite days, like upper body days, basically if you have 2 upper body days and 2 lower body days, you're gonna find that one, your grip's getting trained 3 to 4 times a week just by the lifting itself, not including your back work, your accessory work, and if you put any kind of light work, anything else you do for your job, right? So your hands take a lot of grunt, so his thought process was minimize that, and it did work well for me. Next would be minimal fat bar work. And this is gonna sound absolutely crazy. You're gonna say, Brandon, why would I not use a fat bar to develop my hand strength? Well, according to J.L. Holdsworth, his recommendation was that you're training your hand to be strong in an open position. We don't wanna be in an open position when it comes to deadlift. We want to hold that barbell in a closed position. So we wanna pick exercises that make sure that we're even focused on closing our hand and actually truly training and getting it there, or we're using implements that are relatively close to that. So again, no big fat bar work. I didn't do any kind of fat bar training or testing. Everything I did was on the narrower side, or it's the exact diameter of what we're using if we can, or like the Captain Crushers, we're getting there and we're holding it, or doing the eccentrics. You get the idea, right? The goal is to not train your hand in an open position, because we're not gonna be in an open position. That's what he said. It was not that it's a bad thing. Yes, your hands can get stronger, but it's not gonna directly impact you being able to hold on to a deadlift. And for me, that's what I needed, was to be able to hold on to a deadlift. So we made that specific, and because training like this is still taxing the forearms, and if it's taxing the forearms and not directly aiding my deadlift, it was kind of a waste. And so that's what I want you to consider, is that you don't want to do that, right? Now, if you don't really care that much, like you're like, hey, I still like doing fat bar training, that's fine. I don't think there's necessarily a bad thing that can come from it. It just may not be the best way to build your grip for deadlift, which at the end of the day is all this video is about, is improving your grip strength to pull more. All right, the last thing I want to talk to you about here is going to be your hand care. Now, when you start training your grip specifically, especially if you're new to this, I can tell you right now, your hands and your forearms will be sore, okay? You're not used to training them in that kind of capacity, which means great, you can get the newbie gains. However, it can cause some problems. And in particular, feeling things at the wrists, the fingers, and the elbows are very common. So doing some kind of hand and forearm care is going to be important. Now, the first thing I'm gonna recommend that you do here is you invest in a rice bucket. And the great thing about the rice bucket is it's cheap. You just go buy a cheap bucket from Lowe's or Sam's or Home Depot. You put some rice or some sand in it, either one's fine, and all you're gonna do is put your hands in it, open it, and close it, okay? That's gonna let you train your extensors and your flexors. It's also a good warm up, but it's gonna let you train the minute muscles in your hands, and that's going to help keep some of that aggravation and inflammation away. Another thing I'm gonna recommend that you do is that you do supinated work. And what I mean by that is that a lot of your like pull downs and row variations, try to make sure you're doing things that your hands can be supinated. That creates external rotation at the shoulder. And that's great, because if we're external rotating the shoulder and we're able to do that motion at the elbow joint, that's going to keep our elbow and our forearms feeling good as well. So again, I'm not going to do everything that way, but you don't want to make sure that you're benching and all that other stuff, everything pronated, get some supination, open that up. It will make a difference. You can also, if you don't want to do that as much, you can grab a light sledgehammer or a light dumbbell and then focus on just doing ulnar rotation-based work here, and you'll be good from that perspective. So internal rotation at the wrist, and that will help. It'll be a way you can get around it. It's usually training that, but again, it's another forearm thing you have to do. Where if you use supinated work in your accessory work, it's kind of something that extra that you have to do. You usually have to switch your hands around. Now, the other thing I'm gonna recommend to you is that you are gonna wanna do some soft tissue work, okay? You're gonna want to find a way to roll your forearm out on the barbell with a foam roller, with a boomstick, with a can of soup, or a dough roller. All that will help, again, keep the tissues feeling good. And you will want to make sure that you do that once or twice a week so that you can get some blood flow in there and keep the tissues feeling good. Because if you do neglect this stuff and you train your grip too hard and you go too crazy, your elbows and stuff will start to scream at you, especially if you are doing all the squat and bench press things that powerlifters do. You want to try to mitigate this as much as you can. And I found this out the hard way by not doing this early on, and my wrists and my elbows started to bother me, and I actually started to see my grip strength go down because I was having so much pain. But getting in a rice bucket to warm up and do those things, doing more supinated work and just doing the soft tissue work cleared everything up for me just by itself. Now, the other thing I'll recommend that you can do as well, if you want to, again, also cheap, that you can do band work. And by band work, you're gonna find the small rubber bands that you get in the office. You're gonna put them around your fingers, and you're just gonna take that and open that band up like this. If you have a desk job, even better, because you can just do it like there. But our recommendation is to be on the days that you're going to actually do that grip work, you do about 50 reps or so throughout the day so that you can strengthen the back side of that hand, make sure your wrist is warmed up, get some blood flow in there, and that's gonna help everything feel better over the long run. So there you have it. There's everything that you need to know to improve your hand and grip strength so you don't drop deadlifts anymore. From firsthand experience from what I did that personally helped me deadlift more, that I got from legendary coaches and athletes that were in my same shoes, but also that I respected and knew they could get me to the promised land of having stronger grip strength. The other nice thing too is if you just want stronger hands, this will also work for you as well. So if you happen to have any questions, let me know in the comments section below. I'd be more than happy to help you out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next video.